Thank you, thank you. Good evening, y'all. Welcome to my TED Talk. My name is Mark, and what I decided to do my TED Talk on was authenticity, and specifically amongst college football coaches. You see, there's 364 NCAA D1 division teams, and out of those 364, you'll find five main conferences, the Power Five conferences. Among those conferences is a conference known as the SEC. And what I see here is nothing but authentic leaders in some category. Some may not be, but in the category I want to talk about, it is. But it's not up to the coach to decide if he's authentic. It's up to us as the fans. It's up to the players, the assistant coaches. They're the ones that decide if their coach is authentic. And being authentic isn't about you. It's about what you actually believe and displaying those beliefs. If you're true to yourself and you show that you're true to yourself, then it's simple. You are authentic and you are an authentic leader. But if you're thinking one thing and conversing with your team another, then you're being the furthest thing from authentic. And that's why I think college football coaches and authenticity go hand in hand, because not only are you a second dad to 100 plus teenagers and young men, you're also in charge of winning football games, and that's your livelihood. The only way you put food on the table for your family is winning football games. So you can be the nicest guy in the world, that's fine, but you need to act like the nicest guy in the world, or you're not authentic. And if you're the meanest guy in the world, then you need to be the meanest guy in the world to your team, or you're not authentic. These are just some of the tad bits that I've learned throughout this semester about being authentic. That's why I chose this subject, because authenticity is so broad, yet it comes down to one boiling point. You either believe it and show it, or you believe it and don't show it. It's as simple as that, and that's what separates being authentic and not being authentic. So a background, I just wanted to list out a couple coaches who I think use the authenticity trait extremely well. Bobby Bowden came from humble beginnings in Birmingham, Alabama, was a football player at Samford University, and started his coaching career there. He eventually ascended to the top of the throne and was the head football coach for the Florida State Seminoles. He won multiple national championships and coached many NFL players. Now, if you look at interviews on NFL players talking about Coach Bowden, you'll find nothing but respect and gratitude for the way he treated his players. That's because Coach Bowden knew what he believed and he displayed what he believed. That's my main point here, is being able to not be subjected of yourself, but let your subordinates decide that for you. Because that's what shows if you're authentic or not. You do not decide if you're authentic as a leader. Your subordinates and followers decide that. And Frank Beamer, for example, was one of the most longest tenured head coach, had a bowl game record of 26 bowl games in a row. And what's authentic about that is Coach Beamer could have hung up the cleats and retired from coaching years ago, but it ran in his blood, and that's what he loved to do. So that's being authentic right there. Knowing you love this game, and yet you're old and could retire, but you still want to coach, that's what an authentic leader is. Coach Saban is another great example. You look at him and you see all the success he has. Well, that's great and all, but what did he do to get there? He believed in his stuff, and over his time of his career, he came up with a psychological pattern. A pattern that not only formulates winning, but it formulates exactly what he wants as a culture. When I look at authenticity, I put authenticity and culture as hand in hand. If you want the culture that you want, you better be authentic about it. Coach Furrier is a great example when it comes adjusting to new situations and being authentic. If you want to be a leader and be a successful leader, each situation is different. And not only do you have to conform to that situation, but you have to conform to it at your best belief and then display that belief, because that's what matters. I think Coach Spurrier embodies being able to balance authenticity. He was sort of like what Lane Kiffin is now, but before Lane Kiffin's time. He loved cracking jokes with the media. He loved taking subtle shots at other coaches and programs. And he adjusted himself from being a very winning head football coach at the University of Florida to taking over a South Carolina program that won 5 games in 2 years. That, to me, shows that he can balance authenticity at the finest stage possible. You look at South Carolina when he got there, it was in shambles. He comes over, and the guy is sort of a douchebag, but he knows he's a douchebag, so he wants to display that, and he's not scared to display that. That's what makes an authentic leader so authentic, and that's why I keep saying college football coaches is a great way to embody and exploit this. So my goal of this TED Talk is to basically describe not what authenticity is, but how can you resemble it and show it. And these are the 3 things from the authenticity paradox that I think are great when it comes to embodying it as an authentic leader. You have to be true to yourself. And if you're not true to yourself, like I said earlier, then you're not authentic, and we can just stop this conversation. If you believe that your team sucks, you need to tell your team that they suck. If you believe that your team has something they need to work on, then you need to tell your team that they have something to work on. If you believe in being a coach that yells, then you need to yell. If you believe as a coach that you need to have approachability for your players, then have approachability for your players and have an open door policy. It's stuff like that that separates authentic leaders from mainstream leaders. And being able to maintain coherence about what you think and feel and not expressing it, because that's what makes a leader start to lose any type of respect from subordinates or followers. You may be feeling something, that's fine. Well, you need to express that, and then it'll be authentic. Making value-based choices is a big one, because you have to make the choices that you believe in. That is what authenticity is all about, believing in what you believe and not caring of saying it. If you think it's a good choice to move from the SEC to the Big Ten, then you need to tell your team that. You need to tell your administration that. If you think it's good to substitute your starting quarterback for your 3rd string quarterback because it's going to win your team more games, then you need to do that and show that, or else you're just not being authentic. So here's some evidence that I've compiled. When you look at authentic leaders, I want to see the authentic leaders that are winning. And that's really what I think contributes to winning at the college football level, is being authentic with not only yourself, but your players. Because being authentic with you, that doesn't matter, because you don't decide if you're authentic. As I said, it's the players, the assistant coaches. That's who decides. You look at Nick Saban. He's won 7 national championships in the past 15 years or less. And what do you think has contributed to that? Do you think if Nick Saban has something to say, he just holds his tongue and doesn't say it? No. If he thinks you made a mistake, if he thinks you need to work harder, he'll tell you that. You look at Bobby Bowden, look at that. His players want to play for him. Being a player's coach is just another great example of being authentic. I look at Frank Beamer also, 26 years as a college football coach at Virginia Tech. That didn't stop him from anything. All it did was make him go harder and resonate with his team more. Steve Spurrier jumping from Florida, a successful national championship winning program, to a weary, weak South Carolina team. You think he just patted those South Carolina players on the back and said, it's okay, you guys are good, as long as you try hard? No, that's not what happens when you're authentic. You tell it how it is, and then you get real with not only yourself, but your players, and you get to work. So my motivation for this TED Talk was these two coaches specifically. Kirby Smart, I look at him, when it comes to having diverse role models and coming from diverse backgrounds, he came from not only the best college football coach of all time, Nick Saban, but probably the best college football program and dynasty of all time. Kirby Smart embodies what it means to be authentic. And recently, I've seen a video of his halftime speech from this year's Florida game, and he is lighting a fire in all of his players' behinds. And he's not caring. There's no filter about it. He says what he says, and he means what he says. And that's what makes Kirby Smart so authentic. And you see his team went from, they fired Mark Richt, who was a long-tenured head coach for the Georgia Bulldogs, and now they're back in a national championship contention. This right here, Lane Kiffin, I think is the best example of being authentic, because Lane Kiffin has had so many chances of being a head coach. And when you're authentic, if stuff's not going your way, because maybe you're trying something new or you're trying new tactics, you revert back to your old ways. And that's what Lane Kiffin has done every stop he's been at. You look at him as the USC head coach, didn't have a great run and ends up getting fired. Look at him at the Tennessee head coach, same deal, didn't really have a great run. But each time he bounces back from being fired as a head coach and gets that next head coaching gig, he always makes it count. You look at him at FAU, he destroys it and has 2 10-plus winning seasons. And the best part about it now is him at Ole Miss. You see his Twitter. He doesn't care what people think about him, and he surely doesn't care what he says. His Twitter, he will call out anyone on Twitter, and he knows he's a player's coach. He wants his players to play for him. But at the same time, I think the main reason why Lane Kiffin is authentic is because you can pay him all the money in the world. That's not going to make him stay as a coach. If another university that he liked offered him the job, he would take it. And I think he would gladly tell his players that right now. And that's just something that I think is authentic, because you look at him in a beautiful situation at Ole Miss. He could be on a plane tomorrow and be the next head coach at Miami University. That's because that's what he wants. He doesn't care if it hurts his players' feelings, his assistant coach's feelings. He looks out for himself. And if that's really what if that is really what he believes and wants to do is elevate himself, then he needs to do it. And that's why I think Lane Kiffin is a great example of being authentic. So, authenticity in today's college football. You see this graphic of stepbrothers. Lane Kiffin came from Alabama as the offensive coordinator after 2 years with Nick Saban. Authenticity is all about your diverse background and the role models you've encountered. Lane Kiffin has one of the better role model trees, you could say. Nick Saban, best football coach of all time, took in Lane Kiffin when he was at about an all-time low. He was fresh off the Tennessee job, really didn't know what to do with what was going to happen with his coaching career, but he took a chance on Lane Kiffin, and Lane Kiffin made the most of it. And at the same time, it just goes to show how authentic Nick Saban is. Nick Saban doesn't care if Lane Kiffin is some hotshot offensive guru mastermind. You can see the videos of him chewing his ass out, and Lane Kiffin will even admit it too. When I look at this authentic leadership model, I see self-awareness. Do you have self-awareness as the authentic leader? Well, if you do, then you need to show it. You can look at these 3 traits right here from being authentic: hope, trust, and positive emotions. If you have hope in your team, then you better tell that team that you have hope. What would not be authentic is not having hope in your team and then going to tell your team, like, we got it, guys, we're going to win it all. That's what not being authentic is. And so I think hope is a big thing when it comes to this. If you believe in what you're doing, you have to show it. That is the bottom line. Authenticity is, if you believe in it, you need to display it. Because if you don't believe in something and then try to exhibit that, then you're just being the furthest thing from being authentic. And I look at the follower work attitudes. Do you have commitment? Do you have job satisfaction? Do you have meaningfulness? Do you have engagement? If you don't have job satisfaction and you don't say something about it, you're not authentic. If you don't like where you're at in life and you don't do something about it, you're not authentic. If you think that player's cutting off and not going to class, making trouble, and don't confront him, you're not authentic. So right here, I got the authenticity wheel, and I sort of wanted to put in 5 coaches who could be the perfect, authentic example of a coach. You have purpose, values, relationships, self-discipline, and heart. James Franklin, the head coach at Penn State University, is a great example of values. He came from Vanderbilt, the head coach of Vanderbilt, and they didn't pride themselves on football. Heck, they didn't even pride themselves in sports. But he took a team, that Vanderbilt team, to a bowl game, and he changed the narrative for the Vanderbilt program. Yes, it's gone downhill since he's left, but he goes on to Penn State, and he elevates himself. He believes in what he believes in. His values, he doesn't care if you like them or not. You're going to trust, and you're going to believe in his values, and you're going to work towards accomplishing those values. That's what I think James Franklin is a great example of, when being a value-oriented, authentic leader. Purpose. Dabo Swinney is one of the class act college football coaches around. You can be authentic without having purpose, but Dabo Swinney embodies purpose. He grew up in a football family. His dad was a high school football coach. He was a walk-on at the University of Alabama, a wide receiver, played football there. He knew his purpose was football. And Dabo Swinney, he cares about wins and losses. He'll let you know that. But he cares more about the players he's developing. And that's fine. As long as you work towards making that happen, then you're authentic. And that's another reason why Dabo Swinney is a great example of showing purpose and authenticity. Kirby Smart, heart. You look at him, and I just can't get over the halftime speech that he had. You look at Kirby Smart, played football at Georgia, the University of Georgia, was an all-conference player there, starts his coaching career, grad assistant level, works his way up. At Alabama for 11 years with Nick Saban. He could have taken most college football head coaching jobs in the country, but he chose to say he knew where he wanted to be when it came to being a head football coach, and that was at the University of Georgia. Following your heart, that is what makes an authentic leader authentic. If your heart is telling you one thing and you go do another thing, you're not being authentic. If your heart tells you you want to go be the head football coach at the University of Georgia and you get the opportunity to, then you do it. Self-discipline, I look at Jim Harbaugh and I see a scary individual. I see an intimidating guy. And I sort of think he likes that. He likes when his players, are intimidated by him. That's fine as long as you keep up with that excel, then it's okay. This is the biggest one, relationships, and there's no better example than Coach Saban, because if you look at his family tree of coaches that have coached under him, it's seriously one of the most impressive things I've seen in being a coach. You have Kirby Smart, Dan Patrick, Jimbo Fisher, Dan Mullen, so many other guys that have branched off and became their own head coach. And that's just something to me that resonates with who he is as a coach and what morals and values he can instill into you. Nick Saban is the ultimate embodiment of being authentic because the values and beliefs he believes in, he's not only going to share it with his players, he's going to share it with everyone around him. And that, to me, is why Nick Saban is the ultimate example of being an authentic leader in college football.